845-1100 is a number to call. I want to throw out a few topics before we go to the phone calls. First of all, what is going on in New York City? Matt, I mentioned this to you as I walked in. They have elected in the Democratic primary a guy named Zoran Madani, who is just off his rocker. He's a socialist. He wants to build um, a city-run supermarkets in New York. He wants them to basically build and take over the supermarkets. He is total anti-Israeli, which is interesting because because New York has the largest um, Jewish population outside of Tel Aviv worldwide. So he's anti-Israeli. He is just a complete nut job. He wants to cut $1.5 billion out of the police department, decimate the police department, and he says instead we need to have counselors and just social workers. And so he wants to get rid of the police. He's a complete nut, and he got nominated for the Democratic primary in New York. Former Governor Cuomo has conceded to him, so he's just out of his mind. Then you have on the world stage, you have the fragile ceasefire in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. And there's a debate on how much damage did our bunker buster bombs do in Iran. But the fact is that the Iranians, for the first time ever, are willing to sit down and talk peace, which is pretty amazing. I mean, it could be a smokescreen, but I don't think so. The Iranians are usually dug in on this kind of stuff. So it seems like something happened that brought them to the table. And then you have the Indian government and Pakistani government who are now nominating Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize because they say that he averted a possible nuclear war a few months ago between the two. So there's a lot going on in the world, but I am shocked, and I was going through this as before we went on the air. I am shocked, Matt, by the number of local taxes that are being levied by the state of Illinois on its residents beginning in July 1st. So they're going to increase the gas tax by 3.5 cents per gallon. They're going to add an extra $1 a pack cigarette tax. You're going to pay a new 6% tax on parking. Ride share will be an extra $1 fee. Streaming service, you'll pay a $1 increase on the tax. Online purchases, there will be an additional tax. Sports betting, the tax rate is increased to 40%. Vaping, a new 15% excise tax on vaping. Video game terminals will have a new tax. And then they're going to have a tax on deliveries by Amazon and other delivery services. So just crazy. And my question is, when does this all end? Oh, there's a vehicle trade-in tax too. So when does this all end? I mean, people dislike Doge at the federal government level, but where's the Doge at the state level or local level? Because these taxes are getting out of control. And even in Northwest Indiana, Indiana has less taxes, but we have a food and beverage tax in Hammond, a food and beverage tax now in Maryville. There are a lot of taxes that are creeping into your wallet and your paycheck. And as you said before, well, just go ahead and say what you said. We were saying.
So I was saying that businesses should be telling you how much you make after taxes rather than how much you make before taxes. So then you know actually how much you're going to be paid for real. Because it's stupid that you're supposedly supposed to be making, say, $30 an hour, but you're most likely actually making, say, $25 an hour or something like that.
It's going to be less than that.
Or a lot less than that,
when
definitely.
you graduate next year, if you take a job in Illinois, you'll be lucky to make $15 an hour because they're. Look, I get it. Everybody wants services from local government, state government, and federal government, but nobody wants to pay for it. All right? So you have two choices. Either you're going to pay a lot more in taxes or you've got to start cutting costs. And this is spinning out of control.
Well, it is because technically, if you think about it, we're working and we're getting taxes taken off of our paycheck. And then that same money, if we want to spend it, we're gonna have to pay taxes, so it's just tax after tax after tax.
Look, a lot of people don't like him, but if you live in Florida, you love him. And Ron DeSantis made a speech back in January who said, we need to make sure that Florida is affordable for the people who live here. And he basically instituted a state level Doge program. So they're looking to cut costs. And he said, we're going to try and cut costs so that the property tax burden is alleviated in Florida because it's getting too expensive for a lot of people who bought property in Florida that want to retire there and they can't afford to hold the property now. So it's really getting to be crazy. But 845-1100, I know we have some callers, so we have 3 callers. So let's get to those callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Are you offended by Trump's F-bombing the Israeli and the Iranians over violating the spirit of the ceasefire?
Am I personally offended? No. I have to say that it's unique because Donald Trump, one thing he's known for is not dropping F-bombs publicly, but he seemed to be genuinely upset.
Oh.
He got the message across, and there's a time and a place for every type of word. I always say if you want to distinguish yourself, don't use obscene language publicly because everybody uses it for everything. After all, people wish you a Merry effing Christmas these days. So if you want to distinguish yourself, don't use obscene language. But nonetheless, there's an appropriate time and place, and it seems like yesterday he needed to say it. He got the attention of both parties, and there hasn't been a problem since.
I think one of the things that ticked him off was he was on his way to the NATO conference in Holland, and I think he wanted to be able to walk in there with a success story. And here the Israeli and the Iranians are screwing up the party. But
no, I agree with you. I agree with you, but I also think that he has actually shown he's shown great resolve in wanting to bring about peace in certain situations. I mean, the story that's being missed by the mainstream media and even, outlets like Fox News. Fox News had no mention of the fact that the Pakistani and Indian governments have nominated Donald Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize because he personally interceded in the conflict that they had 3 months ago. And they say now that conflict could have ended up in a nuclear exchange between those two powers. And they both have about 200 nuclear weapons. So this could have been a horrible situation. And they're acknowledging that Donald Trump interceded, and nobody covers it. I mean, to me, that's a big story. Look, yep. I'm again, there's some things Donald Trump does that I don't like, and part of it is the fact that he's such a braggart. I wish he could just keep his mouth shut and just tell the American people what he's doing, but and keep some of his comments to himself. That's part of it. But at the same time, after all, we gave a Nobel Peace Prize to Barack Obama, and he hadn't done anything yet. He hadn't even entered office, and they gave him the Nobel Peace Prize. So who knows?
In any case, watching his Trump's arrival in Holland, he was walking into the conference, and it was nice. For one thing, he walked along like a man not in his 70s, but in his 50s, and there was not the cringe factor of when he got to the stairway, walked up the stairs, that he didn't. We didn't have to sit there and say, "Please don't trip, don't fall down."
You know what? I read an interview with Donald Trump some months back, and they were talking about him physically, and he mentioned that he said, "Look, I have the pains and I have the aches that anybody my age would have, but I dismiss those pains and aches because there's so much of life that I still want to live." And I thought about that quote actually this morning. I was getting out of my car and my knee, I have kind of a trick knee and it kind of hurt. And I thought, I could stand here and rub my knee because nobody's around. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to work through it. I'm just going to move on. It hurts for 10 seconds and then it's fine. And so it's probably good philosophy. I mean, I doubt that there are a lot of people, at least on the left, that are going to take Donald Trump's advice on health, but the guy is in very good physical shape.
Amazing.
I mean, really, and you read. I mean, his own kids say that the guy doesn't sleep, that he sleeps 4 to 5 hours a day, and I mean, he's on top of things. So whether you like him or not, he does something right physically, no doubt about it.
Well, we'll move back to New York City. These are some of the issues that the Democrat candidate for the mayor of New York City is proposing. Free bus rides, $30 minimum wage, freeze rental units, and there is a Republican candidate for mayor of
Sliwa,
of
but
New York
he'll
City.
never win. Sliwa's that guy that started the Angel, whatever it is. He's not going to win. Eric Adams is running as an
Independent.
independent. He probably will win. He'll probably win. I mean, I cannot imagine that the Jewish population in the city of New York is going to vote in Mandani, since he said he's totally opposed to Israel and the Jewish people. I don't imagine that, and they're the largest. It's the largest population of Jewish people outside of Tel Aviv. I can't
Yep.
imagine that they're ever going to vote this nut in. This guy
Okay.
is so far to the left that, again, he makes Pritzker look like Donald Trump. I mean, he is way over to the left.
Speaking of Pritzker, he announced that he's going to be running for a third term, which hasn't been seen since Big Jim Thompson, the Republican, ran several times for the governor of Illinois. There's the view that the reason he's decided to run for a third governor's term in Illinois is that he is definitely going to be running for the presidency. How about that?
He's not going to get elected anywhere. In fact, all they're going to do is publish the list of new taxes that I ran through earlier this morning. He's not going to get elected anywhere. Pritzker, my understanding is that he had problems with his own family. They wouldn't let him work in the family business, the Hyatt hotel chain. So that's why he went into politics. And my understanding is that he rubs an awful lot of people the wrong way. He'll never be able to withstand a Democratic primary. He's not going anywhere. What he wants to be he wants to be the next Kamala Harris. He wants to be the vice president for whoever the candidate is if they get elected. He's not going to get elected as president. How the people of Illinois elect him is beyond me. I said a few years ago when I was working in downtown Chicago, I said, "Wow, Pritzker." There was a poll out that named him as I think the fifth worst governor in the United States, and the woman that I was talking to said, "You're kidding." She said, I think he's one of the very best." And then I started mentioning all the taxes and things, and she's like, "Oh, well, don't you have those in every state, though?" She said, "I thought every state has to have these taxes. I thought they were mandated." And she was blaming the federal government, and she was a bright individual. So, you know what? People vote him in. They get what they deserve, but he's not going anywhere. Hey, Walt, we've got full phone lines, so I'm going to cut this short if you want to call back. All right?
Yep.
845-1100 is the number. Good morning. You're on the air. Good morning. You're on the air. Good morning.
Hi, Mr. Tom Dabertin. I'd like to apologize if I may. I didn't mean that our discussion would be overheated like that. Okay, you accept my apology?
Oh,
sir?
absolutely. Again,
Okay.
we're just not a call-in request show. Okay, we just can't. We can't do.
Yeah, I know that. I think I understand that. But could I still have one teeny tiny song in there? Would be okay.
What song is that?
Rosie, You Are My Posy, Al Jolson song. Oldie but a goodie. The whole song, please.
All right,
not
we'll
just
see.
7
We'll
seconds.
see.
Or
We'll see
half
if
of it.
we can. We'll see if we can
Okay,
play.
I
it, but
just
we
want
can
to
play
say
part of it.
main thing. I just want to say
Oh, no
I think
problem.
my tone of voice went in the
No,
wrong
there's
direction somewhere.
there's no problem. But
Okay.
again, you have to understand we're
But I have
talk
to
radio.
express myself and
Sure.
tell myself. You know.
Sure.
I think it was a little bit like I just said. My fault a little bit. You know. Okay. Thank you.
No
have a rest.
problem.
Be cool and have a safe day. And that's all. Bye.
You as well. Take care. 845-1100. We've got another caller. Good
No
morning.
more callers.
Oh, they hung up.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
call back. The phone lines are now open. Sorry about that, folks. I know we had full phone lines. Again, this idea of you're going to tax the daylights out of people.
Yeah.
And I mean, where are the commissions or organizations looking at trying to cut costs locally? I mean, whether it's at the local level, state level, there has to be some sort of process to cut the cost of government. And again, the low hanging fruit has been picked off. All right, just give you an example. Years ago, when Tom McDermott became mayor of Hammond, he had 4 or 5 department heads. He has now one for public works. All right, so some of the low hanging fruit's been picked off, say in Hammond, and the same is true in Crown Point. The same is true in a number of communities where they've consolidated those departments. So I'm not saying that there hasn't been an effort to reduce costs, but once again, if the cost of government gets to the point that people can't afford their government, then something's got to give. And we're looking at a tremendous cost. I know Chuck Pullen was on Monday and he had the screen up behind him that showed the cost of the federal deficit. All right, and we like to focus in on the federal deficit, but there are deficits at the local level and state level as well that aren't being addressed. Indiana has a surplus, but we're spending an awful lot of money on a lot of things that maybe we have to take another look at. I don't want to sound like Chuck Pullen. I love bike paths, for example, but Chuck Pullen says, "Oh, we don't need bike paths." People say we don't need the train. We don't need a lot of things. Well, once again, where does this stop? The state of Illinois, again, let me pull this up. It is a list of taxes that take effect July 1st. An additional 3.5 cents per gallon on gas, an additional $1 on cigarettes. Okay, let me go back to that gas tax. One of the things that drives me nuts as a resident of Indiana is I pay double the amount for my license plates and registration for my car because it's a hybrid and has high gas mileage. I have to pay double the amount because they say, well, that money is helps to maintain the highways and roads in Indiana, and because you use less gas because it's more efficient, you have to pay more when it comes to registering your car, which is just nuts. But this is Illinois that I'm reading about. A parking garage tax, a new 6% state tax. Ride share, $1 per ride. Streaming services, a 1% tax increase. Online purchase, a tax increase. Sports betting increased to 40% for sports betting online. Vaping products, a new 15% excise tax. Vehicle trade-in tax. Video gaming terminals tax. And a delivery tax, $1 tax on every delivery that you have from organizations like Amazon. To me, that's just crazy. And again, we're taxing people almost out of existence, at least in the state of Illinois. And again, there are, you can say, well, I don't live there, I don't have to worry about it, but you do go there, and when you go there, you're paying this. And by the way, more than 50% of all municipalities in the state of Illinois are increasing their sales tax as of July 1st as well. So, I mean, talk about taxation. No discussion about let's see if we could save some money somewhere. I mean, I would have a lot more respect for J.B. Pritzker if he had put on the table, okay, we're going to put these taxes in place, but I'm going to also put a commission in place to see where we could cut taxes. And he hasn't done that. And again, I think if every time there's a new tax, whether in Indiana, Illinois, or anywhere else, there should be some sort of proposal to cut taxes and to cut costs as well. We've got another caller, so good morning. You're on the air.
You were mentioning about New York, how they elected that whack job, because that's what he is. He's a whack job.
Certainly sounds like he's qualified for that title.
And you rattled off all these new Illinois taxes, and they reelected, Pritzker is a two-term governor going for a third, and I won't be shocked if they elect him again, and you just wonder yourself, what's wrong with these people?
Here's
problem?
well, here's the problem. So I turned 65 in a month, and it just seems to me like the general public just wants to kick the can for everything down the road. So we're going to add all these taxes. I'm going to be 65, so I don't basically use video games. I don't do online betting. So what do I care? But you know what? Let's tax the hell out of Matt's generation, so that Matt can't afford to buy a home. He won't be able to afford to do anything when he's out in another year when he's out in the workplace full time. He's not going to be able to afford to do anything because we're going to tax the daylights out of him. And people say, well, he's young. He'll have to pay his fair share. We paid ours. My generation did not pay what we're setting every other generation up to pay. And that's just wrong.
Yeah, and every cycle here, new tax. I guess if that don't tell you, if that's not blatantly obvious that they have no responsibility of managing our money, I don't know what a bigger example there could be than tax. They are not fiscally. They cannot handle money.
Well, look, part of it is the fact that the constituents that they have look for more and more spending.
Yeah.
The state of Illinois has no problem, spending billions of dollars on illegal migrants. They have no problem spending billions of dollars on all kinds of social programs that don't usually work. They give out all these grants, all these all the support, and it's just problematic. And nobody ever says, let's see if we can cut costs.
No, they don't. And one more thing, the whole Trump dropping that bomb yesterday, that was classic.
But, as long as it doesn't become part of his regular vernacular, I guess we can excuse it.
Right, and the way I looked at it, you really don't. That's the first time I've heard him probably ever even maybe cuss. But like you said earlier, when you're up 20 hours a day working on something, and they pull that, of course you are going to. Of course, I don't blame him for being furious one bit. All these people do is blow each other up, rebuild it. Blow each other up, rebuild it. It just never stops, and I could see why the guy's pissed off.
Well, again, he's the first president since Bill Clinton that actually has gotten the Israelis and Iranians to the table to talk about doing something other than blowing each other up, which is pretty amazing. So I'll give him credit for that. Hey, thanks so much for calling.
Hold on, and make no mistake. If you know anything about our military and those weapons that were used over there on those nuclear sites, those things are blown to smithereens. Okay, those bombs that they dropped are wicked, to say the least.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there was a lot of damage besides centrifuges. As I understand, I read yesterday again that they're very, very touchy equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just the vibrations alone from those bombs would have been enough to throw them off. So, hey, thanks again for calling. 845-1100 is the number. We have two more callers, and we're going to go to a break. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
So my biggest question with Illinois is, where is all the money from the marijuana sales going?
Well, once again, you bring up a good point. They have a tax on all these dispensaries, and that money was going to be the salvation of the state of Illinois, right? It was going to balance the budget. It was going to provide for all kinds of social services, all kinds of things that the state of Illinois needed and local government needed. And you're absolutely correct. They put a tax in. They legalized marijuana. They're bringing in hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in new revenues, just like gambling, gaming taxes in Indiana and Illinois. And you don't see any change. In fact, Pritzker says we need these 10 new taxes to help balance the budget in Illinois. So what else are you going to tax? Really, where are they going to? They're going to tax you. They're going to tax you for everything. They're taxing you for video streaming, which means you're being taxed for watching television. Okay, you're being taxed for your phones, you're being taxed for your cars, you're being taxed for your gasoline, you're being taxed for food and beverage, you're being taxed for getting an Amazon delivery now. You're getting taxed for parking your car in Illinois.
And that's why we have so many people coming to Indiana, and everybody's coming to Indiana and raising the prices over here on everything.
Yeah, and exactly. So it raises the prices over here, and the other thing is that mentality is transferring across the state line, and people are coming over here saying, well, we need this, we need that, we need this. And once again, government basically spends money at the behest of its constituents. So if you want all these additional expenditures, you want these additional programs, you got to pay for it. You have to pay for it. And again, take a guy like McDermott. He sells water to Illinois. It helps pay for programs. But once again, there's only so much water you can sell. There's only so much food and beverage you can tax if you're Maryville or Hammond. There's only so much you can do before you get to that point where you got to come up with new taxes. And my point is that the taxes, they keep on saying, well, these are just minor taxes, and they are. But when you add up the total cost, it's like Matt said, you're getting only 50% of your paycheck. And it's very scary. Yeah. It's very, very scary.
It is. The only way it's going to stop is everybody needs to just stop buying.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thank you so much for calling.
Yes, thank you.
Do you want to take a quick break, or we want to take the call? Let's take a quick break. Callers, stay on hold. We'll be right to you, but we need to take a quick break. This is the Morning Call with Tom Dabertin on WJOB, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, the TuneIn app, and Jed TV. We'll be right back.